Hey everybody, welcome to Write With Us. I'm Micah Craddy, the head of writing at Arc Studio and BetterDocs, as it says in the helpful little name thing below. Welcome. Arc Studio, of course, is for writing your scripts, and BetterDocs is for writing everything else. Before we get into it, jump in the chat. Let me know, where are you and what are you writing today? Are two standard questions we do every week. And then our discussion question, our writerly question to kind of get our juices going today is, what's the most valuable piece of writing advice you've been given? Yeah, so let us know something that helps you, so then you can then share it with everyone else here. We can kind of just like have this sort of smorgasbord of advice and knowledge and helpful writing wisdom there. Yeah, so again, where are you? What are you writing today? And what's the most valuable piece of writing advice you've been given? And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe, turn notifications on, and hit like if you like it. Maybe you can decide later on. You can hold off. You're not sure if you're going to like it yet, but if you do later on, hit like. So if this is your first time, I'm so glad you're here. This is Write With Us. And what we do is 3 timed writing sprints. We do a 15-minute writing sprint, then we take a little break. Then we do a 25-minute writing sprint, then take a little break. And then usually, depending on time, we do a 30-minute writing sprint at the end. During the writing sprints, there's a countdown timer on the screen. I play some music. I'm muted. And I can like shrink down and go down to the corner, that corner over there. And you just write on whatever you're here to write. If you're here to work on a script or a novel or a short story, a short film, TV pilot, movie, essays, maybe you're just doing some work and you just kind of want some company. That's cool, whatever. So yeah, you do that during the sprint. And then in the breaks between the writing sprints, I like to answer questions about writing, about screenwriting. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. I'll get to them later on. And and then during the second break, I'll show the sandwich of the week, which is just the best sandwich, or at least the best looking sandwich, the most photogenic sandwich I made this week. I'm loving seeing everybody getting in the chat already. So let me answer these questions myself before we start sharing your guys' answers. I'm in LA, Los Angeles, California. And fall like finally came. It was very hot, but now it's like kind of gray and chilly. So I'm wearing a hoodie right now. Usually I'm like sweating in here during the show, but I'm actually a little chilly. And I'm working on a feature. I'm re-breaking the story. Sometimes writing, it's like you think you're done and then you realize you're just done with an okay version of something. And you have to go to another level if you want it to be really good. And that's kind of where I am with the feature. I got it to be pretty good, but it just kind of wasn't there yet. So I'm kind of re-breaking the story. I might even be doing a page 1 rewrite on it. It's like still a similar story. It's not, it's kind of a page 1 rewrite, but instead of revising something, just kind of starting from scratch with the story in my head. Sometimes you got to do that. You got to dig deep. And it's so funny because I thought of this question, like, oh, that's a great question. What's the most valuable piece of writing advice? And then I'm like, wait, I have to answer this question. And so I'll just like one that stuck with me just because it was just very simple. It has to do with structure. Because I know people are always like worrying about structure, or like, how do you structure your outline, your midpoint, your reveals, all these things. But I was talking to a buddy. He's actually a very successful screenwriter now. My friend Andy Ciara, who's done an event with us, and he's going to do another event with us in a couple of weeks. And he said that like a lot of structure stuff comes down to, like in screenwriting, basically just have something big happen every 15 pages. And that's kind of like, if you look at a lot of those like Robert McKee or those different kind of like outlining methods, a lot of them comes down to roughly every 15 pages have something big happen. And it's just kind of like, just like a small little piece of advice that's always stuck with me. Julia, what's up, man? Glad you're here. Annie in Toronto trying to write a short film, and Julia's at home writing a feature. Cassandra, not too far from me in Burbank, finishing up a screenplay. Kimberly, getting the LA peeps here, getting back to a feature screenplay after break. Moving up the coast in California, Half Moon Bay. Amy's writing a screenplay. Best advice so far is show, don't tell. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting. I feel like show, don't tell is classic advice, and it's great. I'm seeing kind of an evolution in some things where it's like show and tell sometimes it can be a good thing, because sometimes like you just do need to tell. But like as a rule of thumb, show, don't tell is always solid. Annie's saying, valuable advice, I should keep writing. Practice is what make you a good writer. Yeah, you got to love the process. You got to keep writing. I think this happens, in creative writing, especially if you're trying to write a movie or a book, that like you had this dream to write one, like that's the thing. And then you write it and you're like, well, what now? And it's kind of like, well, you got to write the next one. You have to be growing as a writer. Thea, welcome back from Delaware, back to third novel, valuable piece of writing from screenwriting program in LA. One of my teachers, cut. Yeah. I mean, that's great. My second drafts, I feel like, are usually much shorter than my first drafts. So you're always kind of cutting things. I love that. Ayana in Atlanta, working on a feature film rewrite. Awesome. Alexa in Belgrade, writing a film. Awesome. Welcome. Teji in San Jose, continuing my novel first draft. Most valuable piece of writing advice. You always should be effing delighted when you read your own writing. I censored that because you censored that. So I wanted to give this true spirit of the comment. I think that's interesting. I love that. I think that's an aspirational goal, right? Because you're not always delighted when you read your own writing. Sometimes you're very disturbed or disappointed. But I think that's the beauty of revision, and that's kind of the goal, is to get to the point where you're delighted when you read your own writing. I love that. Back to LA with Niche, finishing up a comedy web series script. Advice given, write what you're excited about. Yeah, it kind of goes to what Teji was saying about being delighted. Like, I always feel, you gotta have a sense of enthusiasm for what you're writing. Lily is here, just loving the sandwich of the week. Got a new bread. I don't want to tease that. A new bread on the sandwich of the week, so don't get too excited. But that's something to look forward to. Craig in St. Louis, probably the best advice is just to keep pushing through. Writing a vomit draft, you might have the tendency to go back and completely change it halfway through. Don't. Yeah. I mean, I'm always a proponent for finishing a draft, but I have to say, I don't always do that. I think this one goes down to your writing style, because sometimes I'll like write the opening of something a few times, and like the first few times it's helpful, and then I'll be like, am I just rewriting this over and over because I'm like too lazy or scared to move forward? So I do think there's a grain of truth in there where you have to like push forward. Elia in Italy, best advice is write poorly without caring too much, then go back at what you've written and adjust. Yeah, similar to Craig, vomit drafts, get it out. You can always revise. You can always make it stronger. Jeff, welcome back. Rewriting a Christmas comedy. Best advice I heard was don't just write what you know, but know what you write. All right, a little twist there on the old canard of write what you know. I like that. Steve in Manhattan, researching comps for query letter. So comps, those would be comparisons, basically. So Steve's looking at other things that have already been written or produced that are similar to his, so that the people he's sending query letters to sort of get a sense of what his thing is. So comps are always valuable. Ayana, best advice. Writing isn't always typing the words on the page. Sitting, thinking about the story when doing something else, talking about the idea is also working the story. Yeah, the words on the page is I don't know. It's the tip of the iceberg, maybe. A lot of it is under the surface. Outlining, developing your characters. Yeah, taking a shower and just thinking about it, taking a walk, free writing, discussing it with people. I love discussing things with people for a couple reasons. One, like sometimes the person will give you good ideas, but often, even if they don't say anything, just the act of you talking about your ideas out loud will just start unlocking things. So many times I've been talking to someone about a problem, and then as I'm talking, I'll just solve it. And I'll just be like, thank you. And they like didn't necessarily say anything. Sometimes they do, and they give you helpful advice, but sometimes just talking about it gets it going. Cash. Oh, what if what you're writing is less than 15 pages? So that was my advice of something that had happened every 15 pages. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's advice for writing like a screenplay, like a pilot or a feature script. I mean, if you're writing something that's less than 15 pages, then you just like need to have at least one big movement in there to grab hold of. Yeah, but like you don't have to have twists every 3 pages or something like that. Juno, hello from Massachusetts, working on a TV series. Best advice, focus on a character's initial belief about life and tell what happens that forces them to change that belief. The change is the heart of the story. Yeah, that's great. I always talk about like internal goals and external goals, and the internal goal is their underlying motivation for why they're doing the thing they're doing. And they kind of have to reckon with that. But I like this formulation of it too, is initial belief about life. That kind of comes down to like theme or philosophical conflict, right? Where you'll have like a view of the world and then an opposing view of the world. And it's like, what is your character's relationship with those ideas? How does it adapt over time? Gemma, I'm guessing, from New Jersey, working on a short film script. Welcome. Sweet Tea Creations in North Carolina. Hope you're doing okay. I hope you weren't too badly affected by the hurricanes. I've been working on finishing the same script for 10 years. I keep getting different script ideas to where I find myself bouncing over scripts. See, this is what we were talking about a little bit earlier about like finishing it, just like finishing it, because it's the grass is always going to be greener like the other script, because it's just like this pure idea. So good luck. I think you can do it. Just if you can just like focus on that script, like it pays dividends in the end. It's always easy to revise something also once like it's finished. So just like getting it done is, really helpful. Cassandra's advice from a theater college professor: KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Fantastic. Great. Heather's here, tag the script, get to a budget, moving into production. Fantastic. Ayana, don't edit as you write, just get it out and keep going forward. Yeah, this is another thing. It has to kind of similar to the vomit draft idea, where it's, you have your writer brain and your editor brain, and try to kind of stick to one at a time. Be like when you're in a writer, like be loose, be flowing, like let the creativity go, and then come back as the editor. And that can be like the harsh, cruel person that, sacrifices your sentences and kills your darlings and all that. Alexia's advice: best advice I ever got is that no matter the story, it is for you to tell the story that makes it valuable. That's interesting. I feel like that's also, that reminds me of people who are often afraid of their story getting stolen, or like their idea getting stolen. And there are a lot of similar stories out there, but like how you tell the story, your perspective on it, your voice, your way of approaching it, how you look at the complications in the story, like it's all going to be different. It's all going to be unique to you. So I like that. Let's see here. And Darissa in Boston could make the short I started last week. Okay. So we're starting a new one. Some of the best advice is the use of irony. Write the opposite of what the audience expects. Ooh, that's great. I like that. Cool. Well, I think this is, good thoughts to get us started here as we move into the first writing sprint, the 15-minute writing sprint, which is the chill, for some people, the music a little too chill writing sprint, but I like it to just get in the flow. And miscommunication, glad for you to join as well. And yeah, a couple more things. Yeah, this is great. Craig, I want to highlight this. Saw a clip of Matt Stone of South Park talking about making sure the beats of your story can stay connected by but or therefore, like X happens, but what happens, therefore Z happens. Yeah. This is something, so I'm doing this pilot writing course, and this is something I talk about in the next lesson. That's, I think, going to drop at the end of this week, where I talk about like using complications. So but and therefore, you can think of those as complications and consequences. So something happens, then a complication happens to that, and then a consequence of that complication happens. And that's one of the really ways that you can tell dynamic stories. And I've seen that clip too, where they, Matt and Trey, they like drop into this classroom and share how they approach stories, and but and therefore, or you can also think of it as complications and consequences, are fantastic for that. And Steve, this is something I've discovered. If you fix one small thing in a bad scene each day, in 1 to 2 weeks, it turns into a good scene. That's awesome. Yeah. And then for what Craig was saying, instead of and then, yeah, and then is boring. And then is just like a grocery list. Like this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. There's no story there. It's not dynamic. But if you have complications and consequences, you can tell a much more dynamic story. All right, cool. Now I'm serious. Now we're actually going to go into the 15-minute writing sprint, because people are here to write, and I've been talking too much. But I love it. I love the enthusiasm in the chat today. If you have questions, please put them in there. Writing questions. I mean, we already answered some. But if you have any questions, something you're struggling with maybe in your writing, or a specific aspect of the writing process or something, put it in the chat and we can talk about it. But now I'm going to slow my voice down for the 15-minute writing sprint. So get your document open if you're writing in Arc Studio or Butterdocs or something else, or just writing by hand. We're going to do it. We're going to write and get into it. And I just feel like the muses are going to be with us today. It feels like a good day for writing. So 15-minute writing sprint. I'll catch you all on the other side. All right, that was the end of the first writing sprint, the chill intro 15-minute writing sprint. Welcome to everyone who joined us during that sprint. This is Write With Us, and that was our first writing sprint, the 15-minute writing sprint. Take a little break, then we're going to do a 25-minute writing sprint, then a break, and then probably do a 30-minute writing sprint. If you joined us, so glad you're here during that sprint. How's it going? Are the muses with us today? What are we struggling with? What questions do we have? Feel free to share in the chat. Love to chat a little bit about writing with y'all. Got a couple questions here. Alexa's asking, started writing this beautiful script, but ran into a problem where I'm just not sure what to do after this sequence that is itself a 3-act structure, but I know what I know what should happen next. So you know what should happen next. So yeah, I mean, sometimes this can happen where you know what to happen next, but it doesn't quite seem to be fitting in to what you've written so far. And there can be a lot of different answers to that depending on the situation. One, what you know to happen next. Sorry if you can hear my neighbor's kids yelling. If you know, sometimes like what you know to happen next turns out not to be right. So, and again, I'm not saying this is 100% the case here because I don't know exactly what's happening in your script, but that's one possibility that, you're wrong and you need to rethink this. But there are a couple things you can think of when you sort of hit a dead spot like that. And one, you can think about like the momentum in your story. What is the momentum forward? What is pushing the character forward? What do they need, and what kind of obstacles can you put in their way? So if you've reached an endpoint, another thing could be also that like your story just isn't a movie, like it could be a short film or something, and you've reached the end of it, and that could be the end. So that's kind of option 2. And then, there's all these other possibilities where you can just think about like, how do I create some sort of question, some sort of need, some way to give the story momentum to keep going forward. So like for the end of that 3-act structure you said that you just had, like, is there something in that conclusion of it that can push things forward? Some new twist, some new information, and you got to kind of try to like find the momentum like that, and keep moving. PlayStation was asking, I'm writing my first screenplay and it's a Batman movie. Is it a good idea to write blockbuster movies for the first script? So this comes down, the answer to this is a resounding yes and a resounding no. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So it depends on if this is your first screenplay, like what are your goals with it? I will say yes, because your first scripts in particular can be about learning, right? You're developing as a writer, you're learning the form. And so starting with something you're familiar with, like a Batman movie, can be really helpful because you understand how a Batman movie works, right? In your head, you sort of have the sense of the structure, the character, the voice, the world. So It's kind of like writing a spec script of an existing TV show, what I talk on sometimes, where like the first script I ever wrote was a sample episode of The Office. And it's kind of similar to that. So it's a good learning exercise. So that's how I will say, yes, it's fun. It's kind of easy to get into, so it can be helpful that way. The no part is you can't really do anything with that script in the sense that like you don't own the rights to Batman, I'm assuming. So you can't really sell it. Nothing's going to happen with that script, but it can be very helpful as a learning, experience for yourself. Who we got here? Struggling how to write a strong log line for a show idea pilot I'm developing. Try instead of a log line, or before you get to a log line, something I like to do is pretend I'm sitting next to a friend and I'm just explaining the story to them. Like, how would you tell the story to a friend in a way that would get them excited? Like, picture you just watched a great movie, or you just watched a great TV show and you're like explaining what it is. So like try to the explain it to a friend method, I think is a great intermediate step towards getting to a log line, because explain it to a friend, and you can actually try literally explaining it to a friend or something. You just like quickly learn like what's working and what's not working. Like you can just see it in their face. So try that, and then you can move towards a log line. Julia's asking, how can I bring myself to write a 120-page script when I feel like I'm dragging? I mean, man, that's that's the age-old question. There's no one answer to this. It's up to you. Really, it's up to you. But there are some things you can do. One, put yourself in a position to succeed. Carve out time for your day. Eliminate distractions. Like something I like to talk about. Go write first thing in the morning. Write late at night when it's quiet. Write with your phone in another room. Do whatever you can to put yourself in a position to succeed. And also like find the joy in the writing. Like what excited you about this script? Find a place. Maybe sometimes you don't necessarily have to write from start to finish, like you can write, you can think of as a part of the movie or whatever that you're really excited about and write that one and kind of try to relight your fires that way. Sometimes also just take a break, it could be a little break, or, go for a walk, again, take a shower, do something you enjoy, try to take your head out of it. But yeah, you come back to it in the end. All right. So Nisha's saying the muses are here. Usually, actually, you're right with this, honestly. Oh, I'm so glad. This is a muse-friendly zone. They're with Ilya too. Fantastic. Let's see here. I always use the 15-minute sprint to write. Free write, so it goes well. Fantastic. All right. Annie was saying, I'm on Act 2 of my short film script, but I feel like Act 1 was way too short, even though it establishes all the characters and their goals and the setting and the scene. Does the length matter? I mean, like, short films can really vary in length. So, you can have short films that are like 5 minutes. That could be a short film. You can have short films that are like 30 minutes or 40 minutes, right? So on Act 2, I feel like Act 1 was too short, even though it established all the characters and the goals and the settings of the scene. I mean, length doesn't really matter. I think maybe look back at that act, though, and, is it just sort of setting the table? It sounds like maybe from the way that you've kind of talked about it, it seems like it's very functional in some sense. And I don't know if this is true. I'm just kind of basing this on what you wrote here, that like, it seems like you're doing a lot of the shovel work, like you're building the things you do, but like maybe it's missing a little bit of the pizzazz, of the fun of it, of the tone of it. I don't know. That's just my suspicion kind of based on it. Like maybe go back and look at it for that. Is it missing that layer of like intrigue or something that could help? I don't have the right press, but I can. No, they don't. Just to be honest, like the big studios don't buy screenplays from, and it's like James Gunn is in charge of the DC universe and stuff, or like they're just not gonna. That's just not how it works. Just to be honest, they just don't like. They have basically they have their own plans for the character, and so they will then bring in experienced writers to like pitch on that, and they're kind of in charge of the process. They don't like bring in scripts for major franchises from outside writers. Yeah. How to deal with creative block. Some of the things I talk about with Julio can help. Honestly, just like taking a break, go for a walk, free write, think about what it is that excited you about the project in the first place. Lowering your standards in the first draft. We were talking about vomit drafts earlier. Sometimes it helps just to lower your standards and just get something out that's bad. Like the freedom to write something bad can be very helpful with writer's block. Just write a bad version and then rewrite it. And that can very, very helpful. Let's see here. Jeff was saying, another piece of advice I heard was a movie should be a major event in the main character's life. You went to a dinner with that character, they would tell you the events of that movie. Yeah, that definitely, that's cool. I like that. Let's see here. Lily, I was talking about like how writing can help early in the morning. Lily was saying, I like to write everyone goes to bed after 1 a.m. That way it's quiet. I don't feel like the news there to judge me. Writing, so it's funny. I'm the opposite. I'm not a night person. I'm a morning person. So I get up and I write around like 6:30 for an hour every morning. And it's just like quiet and it's dark and like, no, it's just like so much easier when it feels like the world is quiet to write. So I highly, highly recommend that. That's great. Okay. Fantastic, guys. All right. We're going to move on now to the next writing sprint. Elliot, plug for Deal with Creative Block, write with us. Awesome. I love it. You obsessed with perfection. Yeah. Don't be obsessed with it for early drafts. That's all I can say is that you're just, because what happens is that perfection becomes an excuse for procrastination. Basically, it's just like, it's easier just be like, oh, it's not perfect, so I won't do anything at all. Like you have to lower your standards for first drafts. All right, I'll do one more question and then move on to the next sprint. How do you effectively balance character development with plot progression in a screenplay? Here's the secret. They're the same thing. The more you look at plot, character, all these things, like they're really, you just end up talking about the same things over and over. I very much am led by my characters. That's what the plot progression is. And you have to think about like where they are in their journey, what do they want, the obstacles in their way. And if they seems like they've solved one problem, then you put another obstacle in their path. And through these plot things, it sort of forces them to deal with the underlying things. That's why we always talk about external goals and internal goals in writing, right? They have their external goal, which is the plot thing that they're going after, and their internal goal is their underlying motivation for that thing. It's the reason they're doing it. So it's all related. It's all the same thing. I would say focus on the character and what they want and what the challenges are in their way. And that'll be very helpful. And Ryan Anthony, you missed, the 15-minute writing sprint and me talking about writing. But you can go back because this is recorded, same place on YouTube, and watch the opening if you want later. All right, we're going to do the 25-minute writing sprint again because I'm talking too much and we're here to write. So 25-minute writing sprint, the music gets a little funkier. We'll do some more writing and then we'll chat a little bit more in the next break. So let's get ready and I'll catch y'all on the other side. All right, y'all. That was the 25-minute writing sprint. We're over halfway done. You have accomplished so much already. I mean, just by showing up, you accomplished something, and you've been writing, theoretically. So well done. Well done. We have one more writing sprint left, but how's it going? Has it picked up for some? Have the muses found you? Have they abandoned you? Let me know. Get in the sprint. The muses can be fickle, as we all know. All right, there were a couple questions that were asked, or questions and comments. I like this. Juno was saying the perfect is the enemy of the good. Definitely. I always think that like the value of the perfect rises with the number of revisions that you've done. So like in the first revision, definitely perfect is the enemy of good. And then it's the further you get in the writing process, the higher you make your standards. That's my personal belief. Until, for your last draft, your standards are as high as they can be. But like, yeah, starting lower and then moving up is my approach here. Content scientists, this is great. You're welcome. So we talk about the differences between Arc and Butter, how they work together as one writing environment. So Butter and Arc are separate. I mean, they're not really one writing environment. So basically, if you use Arc Studio, ButterDocs will be very familiar to you. If you use ButterDocs, Arc Studio will be very familiar to you, but for their different kinds of projects. So Arc Studio is for writing scripts, movies, short films, TV pilots, all that stuff, episodes of TV. And ButterDocs is more of a general writing app. You can think of it more like as a Google Docs kind of thing, but with the built-in notes app, the outlining tools, and some fantastic collaboration tools and that kind of stuff. So it depends on what kind of project you're doing. If you're writing a script, Arc Studios is the software. But if you're writing a novel, ButterDocs is great for that. If you're writing a research paper, ButterDocs is great for that. Basically prose, anything prose, ButterDocs, anything script, Arc Studio. All right, Cash has a question here. That's a couple of questions here. I'm working on a short film that I hope will start an anthology movie of interconnected stories. Is it better for me to edit each story immediately after I write it, or because of the interconnected nature, should I wait and edit them all together? So this is tricky, and I don't have like a definitive answer on this. I'm just going to share my opinion on it. It depends on like, what do you plan for production of this? If this is something you're going to make, then I say just get something done. Like make the first short film, basically, because it's a lot of work. Short films are work and money and time. And so just like get something done and then build from that. If the idea is to sort of write this all and then try to get like investors and stuff like that, then like maybe having the whole thing planned out would help. But it really depends on like how you're trying to approach it. Again, take that with a grain of salt. That's just kind of my opinion on that here. All right, let's see here. And Alexa, do you believe that an inciting incident placed before the last resolved incident paces the story faster? Placed before, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, Alexa. I mean, I will say that as soon as you resolve something, as soon as your character feels like they have reached a point of rest of accomplishment, then hit them with another obstacle. And whenever it feels like they've achieved something, that's, I think, generally when you would put the next complication in front of them. Checking in on how things are going. Julio, up to page 42 on your feature. Congrats. Nice getting a lot done. Amy, I realize how distracted I get when writing. Oh my gosh. Because here's the thing about getting distracted when we write. A lot of times we want to be distracted because writing's hard and distractions are easy. So yeah, it can be hard. That's why it's like you have to limit almost your own ability of getting distracted. But it's one of the reasons why I actually like writing in coffee shops, because I have this weird sense, it's like very egocentric, that if I'm writing in a coffee shop, everyone's looking at my screen, judging me. So they probably don't even know I'm there in reality, but this is in my head, they're judging me and looking at my screen. So I have to keep writing. I have to like keep it what I'm doing. Because if they see me on social media or like ESPN.com or reading about soccer or like watching some sort of like soccer tactics video on YouTube or something, or like YouTube videos on transit and urban design, these are like some of my nerddoms, then they're just gonna be like, what's he doing? He came here to watch videos or be on social media on Twitter or something. So in my head, it kind of keeps me writing. So it's like you just got to kind of find whatever ways that work for you to get rid of those distractions. Yeah, Tezzy's getting a good start on this chapter. Love Write With Us, my most productive. Wow, fantastic. Yeah, Anthea's going back to what I was saying about for Cash making the short form. For you gotta realize it's so easy to not do stuff, and production is so hard that like anything you can get done, then do it. Like just get that thing done, because it's like it's so easy to not do something. It's so easy to wait, to put it off, to be like it all hasn't come together. So anything you can do just like get something done is fantastic. All right. What techniques can be used to create compelling character arcs that enhance the overall narrative in a screenplay and also explain 3-act structure? There's a lot in that question. I don't know if I'm going to be able to like get everything in there, because I feel like that's like an entire book right there in that question. So in like 15 seconds, I will have to say that again, just at like a helicopter or airplanes flying over right now. At the core, at the most basic, I always come down to just character goals. Like, what does your character want? Why do they want it? What kind of obstacles are in their way? And like, how does dealing with their external goal, their journey, how does that force them to change inside? And really, that's just like the heart, I think, of so much. It's like, what do they want? Why do they want it? Force them to deal with why they want it, and how do they grow over that journey. I know that's not like doesn't fully answer your question, because again, that question would take a book. Gina's saying, I haven't tried ButterDocs, but I did use the Arc Studio outlining tool to help outline a memoir. Maybe we'll check it out. Yeah, no, it's fantastic for that. Like for book writing, ButterDocs. It's like if you've used Scrivener, but it's like Scrivener meets Google Docs with other tools as well. So it's like it's a really good tool. Ryan with an E, how to think of good dialogue between two characters who are enemies that have known each other for a long time. Oh, that's fun. I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's a scene I'd have to sit and play with to give you a good idea on that. One, I mean, there's a lot of backstory there, right? So there's a lot of probably stuff that's led up to this. And there's a lot of baggage on there. I think one thing that can be surprise, I would say, is that like maybe you think going into that conversation, you know what each side wants because like they're enemies, right? But like you add some sort of twist in there to the surprise about like what one of them wants or what both of them wants or how they respond in that moment, especially if like maybe someone's been looking forward to this moment for such a long time and then they get there and it's disappointing, or they don't feel like the way they thought it was going to feel. But like just trying to find basically building expectation and then trying to find some way to have a twist in there. All right, heading out, LS, but a productive session. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Oh man, Harsh, you got all the big questions. You're like coming out swinging with these questions today. How do you create tension in a scene where nothing physically happens, but the emotional stakes are incredibly high? I mean, that's the same thing. There has to be like the risk of the stakes coming into play, right? Like it has to feel, you have to write it in such a way that the negative consequences of those stakes, because stakes are right, or what can be won or lost, right? So you have it all on the line. It can be unclear first off going in which side's going to happen, or is the positive thing going to happen or the negative thing going to happen, and you can have like a development over that, over that scene of what you think is going to happen. But like I think that the trick really is to write it in such a way that the negative consequences feel very real and very palpable. And that it's just like on the precipice of happening, it's just about to happen. And like the audience can feel that it's just about to happen, but like you kind of do that a little bit. And so it's like that sensation that it's about to happen. And then, you sort of like release the tension. That's what I would say. All right. Ellie, a sandwich. We want the sandwich. Tease with the new bread. sandwich. All right. Yeah. We're going to do the sandwich and then the last sprint here. All right. This is the sandwich of the week. It is a rosemary polenta bread, which sounds very weird, but is actually delicious. And this bread actually, it's so funny because you can see just how much bread there is. It was like an awkward part of the loaf yet where it wasn't, I was slicing it and like there wasn't enough for 2 sandwiches, but it was like too much for 1 sandwich. So this was actually incredibly difficult to eat. Like it was too big. And I just kind of had to just go with it. It was a very messy thing. But this rosemary polenta bread, it was lightly toasted, is the key, lightly toasted. And it was fantastic. So this is, and I've been on a ciabatta kick for a while, but like this is the, this is a great bread. It's mixing it up. I actually had ciabatta today for lunch. This was, I think, from yesterday or Monday. Anyway, so there we go. And we were talking about mayonnaise last week and how I like always use light mayo for my health reasons, but we ran out. So I've been using that Japanese Kewpie mayo for this, and it's so good. It's like such good mayo. Anyways, so there we go. Yes, it's like it's actually 2 mouthfuls, Anthea, but it was delicious. So there we are. There we go, guys. That is the sandwich of the week. Tune in weekly for weekly sandwich content here on Write With Us. There you go. I'm loving it. Like I guys like the sandwich. This one. I agree. This is a beautiful sandwich. So there we go. All right. So next week, if you want to join, we're doing Write With Us again. It's in the same place. For our studio, you can RSVP here. I'll send out emails also, and you'll get the regular emails to RSVP. But there we go. All right. We're already at 2:18. We had a lot of screenwriting questions today. So I don't think we're going to do the 30-minute writing sprint. But yeah. Oh, yeah. If you have to leave, by the way, totally. I know if people have said they had to go. That's fantastic. You can come when you want, leave when you want. I love to see a goodbye in the chat. I love to hear how it went, what you got writing, what you wrote today, do it. Like, love that in the chat. And if I don't say farewell to you in the chat or whatever, I'll just say farewell to everyone now. But we're going to do one more writing sprint. And I think, we're just going to do a 25-minute writing sprint again, just because like we're already running so late today. And good. I'm glad you were learning. I know you had the big questions, and I don't know if I fully answered everything that you wanted. So, but I'm glad there was some of it. My ramblings were helpful. Great. All right. So I'm going to play 25 sprint. Actually, a 25-minute sprint. And if you have to go, fantastic. If not, I'll say goodbye to you on the other side. But there we go. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for coming if you had to go. And hope to see you next week. Here we go. 25 more minutes. And catch you on the other side. Actually, I'm going to switch it up because we already listened to that music. We're going to do the 30-minute sprint. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit on it to. There we go. That brings us to the end of the third writing sprint and the end of Write With Us for Wednesday, October 16th in the year 2024. I hope you guys got some great writing done today. I did. This was fantastic. Great questions in the chat. Seemed like y'all were having a good time getting writing done. Yeah, thank you so much for showing up. Let's show the sandwich one more time. Just that beauty. Just say farewell. Please come back next week. Please bring a friend. I'd love to see more people here. All writers are welcome. Until next time, take care of yourselves and happy writing. See y'all.